This is the 8th question corner. We do it at the last Thursday of most months, and you can answer questions too. Myself and Nele are usually always here, and then sometimes we have a special guest, and of course that special guest has a special topic. In this case, it is Ingo. Ingo from the consulting team will be joining us. His specialty topic is crashing bikes. Ingo has cycled to many more POCs for Camunda than I think anyone else. So thanks for that, for joining us, Ingo.
Yeah.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Ingo Richtsmeyer. I'm working since 6 years for Camunda as a consultant, traveling around the world, visiting customers and explaining customers how this product works and what you can do with it, all in all. I'm graduated at university in computer science a long time ago, and since then I love to talk to people about how IT can ease up their life, and also in the process area, I'm since a long time. I saw my first real process engine in 2001, and I like it to do this process modeling and process automation and cycling. But hopefully not crashing this. I haven't ever been in a crash like this. Good luck, and looking forward to the Tour de France starting on Saturday in Nice.
Good to know. Yeah, I've crashed my bike a lot of times, Ingo, so I'm going to surprise you.
Yeah.
Super. So thanks, Ingo. You come to the right place. I'm sure you'll be helping us answer a lot of questions. Of course, we are also joined as always by Nele. Nele, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, maybe people know me by now. I don't know. I'm also in the consulting team. I'm actually in Ingo's team. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer questions as always. Niall, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, why not? So I'm Niall, I'm a developer advocate for Camunda, and you'll probably find me on the forums or doing demos or doing all sorts of examples and things. And of course, we also have joining us is Luca, who will talk more a little later on at the end of this about events and things that might happen. Say hi, Luca.
Hey, my name is Luca. I'm the community marketing manager at Camunda, and usually I'm more behind the scenes. Yeah, so I will talk to you later on about the upcoming community events.
Fantastic. So let's explain what we're going to do right now. So we have asked you to drop a bunch of questions on here over the last week and a half. We do this all the time. We open up a link for Slido. It's right there in front of you. Luca's going to put it in the chat probably, because she's like that. And you can join that right now, and you'll be able to see all the questions that have been asked over the last week and a half. You can also use your phone to scan that QR code, and hopefully if I did my copy and pasting correctly, that should be the correct place to go. Those questions, maybe there's one there already that you like, that you would like to upvote, go ahead and do that. You can also add questions there. We don't use the Zoom chat so much for questions. You can put comments in there, but the Zoom chat is just for fun. The items where we're actually going to be talking about questions and answering them and upvoting them. Because you lovely people made the effort of showing up, we will, of course, let your questions take precedent above the ones that are there. So feel free, just because there's 17 questions waiting for us doesn't mean that yours won't get answered. If you're interested in knowing how exactly you ask questions, following that link will actually bring you to this lovely page where you can either type a name of an answer or upvote a question that you're particularly interested in. Okay, so with that, that's too far. Spoilers. Let's answer some questions. So let's start. I obviously have Ingo and Nele here to help. And obviously, as Ingo is our special guest, Ingo, is there a question there that you would like to take off my hands and start off with?
Let's start at the beginning.
So do you want to take the top voted one here, how to integrate Camunda and Jenkins pipeline and that sort of thing?
Okay, how to integrate Camunda. I just thought about the question that was handed first, but we can also, of course, value this ranking. Integrate Camunda deployment with Jenkins pipeline that include pulling from repository, integrating coverage tool, code quality tools, etc. Difficult because I haven't done this by myself. I've done just a few pieces of this. So writing JUnit tests with the test coverage integrated, that's easy. And I think Jenkins can do this, or even Maven will do this when you run your Maven clean. package whatever you want, this will be done. And then if Jenkins can start the Maven build, that's to do this. Pulling repositories, I think that's also be done by Jenkins as I understand it, but I'm not sure. Do you have any experience with the Jenkins pulling from repository?
So yeah, that does happen. But actually, I recall that Nele was talking about some project you're dealing with actually recently. Was there an open source project you were talking about the other day that does something like this? Am I...
Yeah, I mean, in general, I also have to say I'm normally not involved in this whole cycle, but as Ingo said, I think most, if you look at the Camunda testing or the integration of the Camunda deployment, you should treat it like normal code, with the difference that we have this cool testing for the process itself, which is a coverage. And recently I discovered, or I was pointed to a really cool project, and I really like to show this. So if I can start
sure.
sharing your screen, Niall, I take it.
No problemo, all yours.
Yeah, that is Zoom. That is wrong, but yeah. So the idea is basically here, or of the process task coverage. If I have my my project, my Camunda project, I have my folder, and I wrote a nice test here for testing my process. So I have a cheesecake process, and I want to see how much percentage of this process has been tested. And the way that is out there that most people might know by now is our test coverage, which will generate an HTML where you can see how much percentage of your process is covered already. I was pointed recently to another cool project that is actually flowcharts. I don't know if you guys know CodeCarve. It's the same, but it's meant to be for your processes. And the things that we need to change here is basically for using it, we don't use a test coverage engine rule builder, but we use flowcharts. We also change it in the XML. And what this will do then is, well, of course, we also have to register at flowcharts. And the good news is it's already there in a pre-alpha release, I would say. That's already the spoiler, but you go to flowcharts and you can create a repo here. Then you get a secret and a key that you need to include. And what this coverage is then doing, once you build it or once you test, it will publish a JSON to flowcharts, and then you can basically see your test coverage here. That's already really cool. That's also a very cool process. What you also can do is, if you want to include it more into your pipeline, so to say, you can also define it, for example, in your GitHub Actions. So if you go, or if I go here to my repo where it lives, someone for me defined, I did not do it myself, but I got some help here to define my my GitHub action here. So now every time I push to GitHub, it's automatically creating the builds and pushes to flowcharts as well. And I think it's a very interesting project to watch, or that's a very helpful tool, especially for the whole pipeline cycle. And as well, we already see something interesting here. I tested all things in my process model, but I still have just a coverage of 39%. And we had this discussion recently as well with the consulting team. There are some parts in the coverage or in the process test coverage which are not covered at the moment. And one is here the sequence flow from the event-based gateway. But those things, I think, will be fixed in the future for this flowcharts tool. And also I heard that there is an effort also to include DMN and call activities, so you have a better testing experience. Niall, Ingo, what do you think? I think you haven't seen it yet, right?
No, can you put the link to that in the chat actually, in case people want to find this? This is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Of course, you're publishing your stuff to the cloud, and I don't know if everybody wants to do this. I'm always a little bit cautious with this kind of services, but it looks very well. So it's little bit nicer than the code cover, than the process test coverage that's generated, and the additional charts that are generated I think are useful as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think most parts of FlowCarve will be open source, so it's free to use in the cloud. But I think the people building it are also discussing the option to have it on your own server running, so you can use it on your own server. But maybe that won't be open source then. Yeah. I don't want to say something here, but I think that's something you can, watch in the future. You can also check out the GitHub project they have built here, and of course, you can do pull requests, and the roadmap is also depending on feedback from the communities. So if you want to test it out now, I put the link here. It has a nice getting started experience. It's very straightforward, and it it's really cool for your whole pipeline integration.
Awesome.
And as I saw your hint to this GitHub actions, this is also something that was mentioned in the question. I think it will do a lot of this pulling repos and this automatically.
Yeah, I mean, you could also probably put it then in Jenkins if you don't want to use
it.
So.
Cool, thanks a lot, Nele. That's awesome. May I steal my screen back from you? Yeah. Cool, thanks. That was a very in-depth answer, actually, far more than I expected. So I'm going to tick that as being answered. So now let's see what else we got. I'm going to pick something for myself to answer. Oh, there we go. I'll pick a really easy one for myself. Okay, when should I be using Camunda connectors? I'm going to make this very short. As an opinion of my own, don't use them. They're hard to scale, hard to test. There's better options out there. They are very quick to get started with. So let me explain what they are. Connectors are a way in which you can send REST calls or SOAP calls from the model itself to some service. That sounds really good, but it's way easier to just implement it using a Java code or a script or an external task. Connectors will initially get you started quickly, but will down the road, if you're looking for a project that you intend to put into production and you expect high scale and you want things like security, it's going to cause headaches. So I would not start with them. I would start with any other option. So that is a quick one from me. Anytime I see connectors, I want to just grab them. Any disagreement from my panelists?
Maybe I just want to add, I think they also have existed, or they existed before we had external task patterns.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Basically, a lot of those things why you would use connectors now you could solve with external tasks.
Yep, very good point.
I think they are quite good when you have a fixed service which you want to talk from time to time to. So in our example, we go check the weather for Berlin. If this web service is available all around, all the time, it's fine. But when you want to send out a tweet to the Twitter API, as we do it in our training with the help of connectors, I tried it a whole weekend and I didn't get it.
Well, so connectors officially have wasted at least one weekend for Ingo, so therefore that's kept them out.
I was in Mumbai and it was raining all the time, so maybe it's not this waste of time, because I get some experience afterwards. I remember this for the rest of my life. But it's tough.
Awesome. Okay. This is, I think we got two questions about EE enterprise version of Camunda and open source version, I think. Let me just remind myself. Yeah, Maven one. What Maven setup is needed to use the enterprise version. Also, we can probably wrap that up with this one. If we upgrade from the enterprise version, can we go back to the open source version? Ingo, this is something you do all the time, so I would like to ask you to maybe give us a quick overview of, first of all, how to actually use the EE version, a very quick sentence about the differences, and then also if this is possible.
Of course, the enterprise version has additional features which are not part of the community edition, like a history view of the cockpit, so you can see everything that was done in the past. In the enterprise version, you also get support from us in a certain amount of time. So with the standard service level agreements behind this. So these are, I think, the two most worthful features that you lose when you switch back to the community edition. But from the technical point of view, you can switch between both versions quite slightly because every state is saved in the Camunda database, and this will be the same even if you want to go from community to enterprise version, or even if you have to go back, but I would not go back.
Niall, you are still muted if you are saying something.
I'm muted, yeah, sorry about that. Cool, I will take that as answered. Nele, I guess you, do you have anything to add to that particular question, or are you happy enough with Ingo's?
I'm happy.
Good. And then I want to drag the other one up as well, because this is a question I saw on the forum a while ago. So I famously saw this wonderful question in the forum where somebody was just trying to turn a Spring Boot project from community to enterprise, something that can, if you know what you're doing, take about 10 minutes. And there were a total of...
Even faster.
Even faster, yeah. There was a total of like 35 replies to this. And it's actually something that we have always considered to be relatively easy and therefore didn't need to document too heavily. But this forum post, I think from this week, it wasn't exactly this question, but it was very similar, was posted. So Ingo, I think you can help us out here, can you?
Yeah, and of course, when I do a training on customer side, this is always the most struggling part to get the enterprise version every developer machine. And as I had a long experience with this without being a Maven expert, so that's my problem there. And the Maven setup for each company is different. Some companies have proxy servers which are not allowed to pass anything through. Some companies have local Maven repository server which works as a mirror for everything outside the world. When you go to this fancy startup, people are connected directly to the internet, so it's quite easy then to get this. And from this experience, I started to build a BPMN process to explain what you have to check to get this done, to make it even easier for me and my colleagues when we have the situation next week again, when we do the next training. So maybe I can share my screen.
Go ahead.
Yes, share this screen. So, and this is the process. I modeled it already in Cavemo, so I can share the link to everybody else. I already shared this to Niall and Nele, but maybe we can do this as we do this with all processes. Maybe Nele can explain what she sees on the screen here, and we can go through this and check if all the tasks are valid or not.
Okay, so I want to have the enterprise artifacts.
Maybe I should enlarge it a little bit, then it's easier to read. Okay,
so I get the enterprise credentials. Then I check for a company Maven mirror. So in the settings XML. And if this mirror exists, I check for the enterprise artifacts. If yes, I can read the enterprise artifacts from the company proxy. If not, it's getting more complicated because then I check for a local Maven installation. I can do that by running Maven version on my command line. If Maven is available on my command line, I can then get the credentials and to the settings XML. So I found the settings XML normally if I use Windows under username m2 settings XML. And there I can basically copy and paste what is here in the process model to have my username and my password. If Maven is not available, I need to create Camunda settings XML in my project. I add the credentials in the Camunda settings XML the same. I write the Camunda settings XML in my IDE. I push the update settings button, okay? And then I go back for both versions and check if the PC is behind a proxy, And if I have not a proxy, I think I'm done. No, not really. Well, okay, then let's see what I do. If I have a proxy, I get the proxy host credentials. I check for local Maven installation. Again, if it's available, I can then add the proxy settings to the settings XML. If not, I need to add them manually. I push the update settings button, and then this flow also is merged. And then after I've done this, I add the repository to the POM XML. So I will enrich the POM XML. I try the minimal POM XML, which you can see here as well. I think you basically copy and paste what Ingo wrote here. And then you have enterprise artifacts ready from private Camunda Nexus.
So Niall, as you've listened to Nele, do you think this process will work?
Almost certainly not, mainly because I myself have been trying to, forever like yourself, plan something around Maven, and there's always something I forget. So there's always something going on with Maven that I suspect will just get me in the end. But I guess you need the trial licenses handy. Do you actually have adding the license to the project file?
No.
There we go. You see, this is why collaboration works. You need...
Yeah.
For the interest of time, I shall quickly move on from that question. But what we'll do is we'll try to put up this this thing on the forum, maybe, or post it somewhere in public so that we can actually take a look at it and we can get more feedback on it.
Yeah. My idea would be to prepare this as a minimal Maven repository in the consulting space, that we can also send this out to customers doing a training next week, that they can prepare this and we don't have to do this.
Cool, thanks, Ingo.
That's cool.
On site.
May I share? I'm going to steal the screen back from you. I want to just answer some questions for the people who have showed up, because some people have. I've noticed this lovely name here in the current showing up just now, and have asked this question: have we documented any best practices or guiding principles that can be referred to developing using microservices specifically? Well, the answer is yes, absolutely. Do we have, where would you guys want to send them first, though? We have quite a lot of documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like, for a start, I like Bernd's blog posts. I think he has a cheat sheet for microservices.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think it's a good start, actually, to read the different options how to integrate Camunda BPM with microservices.
Do you have that that link handy, Nele?
I will look for it.
Cool. You pop it into the chat there, so that we can get an answer to it.
On the other hand, this is also quite difficult, because we have so many options to integrate Camunda that it's more sorting out what don't want to do.
That's true. I think there are some very low-level best practices, like around error handling and that sort of thing, if you're using external tasks. And that sort of thing. So that can be definitely used universally. We do have best practices documentation available. I'm not sure if it focuses entirely on microservices, but it's still pretty good. Maybe we can drop a link to that in a few minutes as well. That's different from the docs. The best practices is maintained from my colleagues here in the consulting team. So you can blame them directly for any problems you may find. Email them directly. Oh, thanks, Nele. Nele's posted that blog post now. Cool. Hope that answered your question. Okay, Arvind, of course, is in the chat. So this is a heavy question, Arvind. You're bringing the good stuff here. I'll leave Nele answer this one, I think, because
why do clients choose workflow products which does not have OMG standards? Good question. I'm wondering all the time. No, not all the time. There might be reasons, though. Maybe if you don't have developers and you look for a low-code solution, and then this low-code solution is not implementing the OMG standard, but you choose it because you are not aware of that, because basically you don't have developers. Maybe that's the reason. One I could think of. Ingo, Niall, any other reasons why you would, well, not you, but why a client would choose a workflow product?
Maybe because they started a workflow initiative a long time ago, even before, longer than 10 years, where BPMN 2.0 was born. And they just stick to their minds and don't look over the to see what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah, another thing is that it's very important to know which kinds of clients don't use OMG standards. So for instance, if Camunda decided to make a proprietary engine, it would not take off. Now, if an existing very, very large company decides to implement workflow in whatever proprietary language they like let's say IBM or Oracle, where they already have a huge amount of clout in big companies, well, then that's actually quite easy to do for a large company to make something proprietary. It's usually a better idea for smaller vendors like ourselves, or at the very least, ones that are open source, certainly to embrace those standards. So a very common thing would be that somebody already uses, let's say, an Oracle database, and they already use other Oracle products, and therefore it's maybe a choice. Let's just use whatever Oracle has to make, even if it isn't. No, I'm actually that insinuates Oracle doesn't use OMG standards. I'm not sure if it does or not. So, but that's an example. So hopefully that answers it. I have a question here. Another person who's in the call as well about this lovely DMN question we have. Let me drop that to the top. How do I define custom data types for DMN decisions if I'm only using Camunda Web App? Ingo, do you want to take this one off my hands?
I think it's not so easy, if even impossible. If you just have Camunda Web App, well, you need JSON, a JSON structure, if you want to provide complex data, but I don't know if you can edit them with the help of the tasks, for example. You can add them in the cockpit as a variable, but yeah, it's a tough task to do. It's more easy when you use not the Camunda Web App, but the Postman, because with Postman you are much more flexible and provide data to the engine, and then you can use this either directly in a DMN decision or with the help of a process, and then go to a business rule to evaluate the DMN decision.
I think I think you're right. The core of it is that it requires a certain amount of customization of the web app. I think if you just have it by itself, the Camunda web app, and we're talking specifically about task list here, is very much a bare bones in terms of it implements basically what you need, but doesn't go so far beyond that. Now that'll change in the maybe next year or so when we spend more time doing some development on it. But for now, it would require a certain amount of customization. You would need to tell the engine how it should understand the custom data type and that sort of thing. But it is possible, but it would need a little bit of research and definitely some Java knowledge.
And it's very easy if you do this with a JavaScript framework. So I remember a project a long time ago where I just used AngularJS to collect the data from some input fields and then build the JSON object that I need to send to the engine with the help of JavaScript code. That's quite easy.
Awesome. Thanks, Ingo. That's good to know. I didn't realize. So let's tick that one. Boom. Okay, so I will stop picking the questions. I will let Nele pick a question that you want to answer. Then Ingo, you can go after Nele.
I saw a funny one about CMMN. I might.
Are there any questions about CMMN that aren't funny? Oh, there we go. Oh, it's Arvind. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's something I can answer in short. I think it's also. I think it's not a right or wrong answer. It's just my perspective why it's not so popular like BPMN and DMN. So first of all, you have to CMMN is for cases. So it's most of the time the case that you have not really structured work. So you have tasks in a not structured way. But if we look at standards like BPMN and DMN, they are also there for automation, because we have this notational model besides. And just from the perspective, if you have unstructured work and you try to automate it, it's not really, not used that much, because most of the time you try to automate a structured workflow with at least more service tasks in it. So CMMN normally is not having that many service tasks, for example. So for automation, does not make that much sense. And as well, BPMN introduced some symbols that make BPMN diagrams a lot more flexible, like event subprocesses and stuff like that. So with BPMN, you already have the possibility to have unstructured work, so to say. I think that might be the reason why it's not so popular. I don't know if someone likes to add to it.
Well, I wrote a blog post maybe about a week ago about Camunda's journey in adopting CMMN. I actually didn't answer this question specifically. I more gave a little history of Camunda's own sort of reaction to it. So Camunda did start implementing it. Camunda does have a CMMN modeler. The engine does run a lot of CMMN. And even Cockpit displays it in the enterprise version. But we invested a couple of years into CMMN and it just never took off. It's a really good question as to why. I think there are really valid answers. Adaptive case management was never as popular as process stuff and rule stuff already, so that was a problem. Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, for me, as someone who actually learned all these standards and gave trainings in all of these standards, I can say CMMN's learning curve is steep. You can learn BPMN pretty quick and DMN very quickly. CMMN is hard to learn. And it's got a whole bunch of weird things that happen that aren't always obvious unless you know every symbol on the canvas. With BPMN, you can kind of follow along step by step, but with CMMN, you can't because loads of things can affect other things in change of state that is not obvious because there's no sequence flows, for instance. So my own personal anecdotal reason why it's not popular is it's hard to learn, and the value of learning it isn't really that great if you can already do it in BPMN. So that's my little thing. Ingo, do you have anything to add to that, or shall I jump a question on you?
When I saw this for the first time, I found this was the missing piece in this because I remember some processes that need flexibility where this play button inside the human task is exactly the one that I needed in this situation. But then when I got deeper into this, I was a little bit more disappointed. So if you use just simple CMMN diagrams with user task and this play button on the user task, then it's fine. But beyond this, it's much over-engineered and some visual pieces are just missing that you could not put a label on a sentry, for example.
Yeah, that is a pain. Yeah, that's true. Cool, thanks so much. Ingo, is there a question there that caught your fancy?
Let's take the one that's there. How to test a Spring Boot microservice, how many Camunda process is calling and which order so that we can get one complete business flow of Camunda. I think the answer could be just use optimize. There you can ingest all the data from all the Camunda engines and build the reports with the help of this.
I had some troubles understanding it. Can you, the question.
Yeah, actually, Ingo, do you want to explain the question just because I can kind of see what you mean? Can you just explain the architecture that they have here for this? And why
a Spring Boot microservice is, from my impression, just a process engine created in Spring Boot.
Okay.
Or even maybe just a service task that used Camunda, or just service task implementation using in a Camunda process. And then when you have not only a single microservice, also a single Spring Boot application with Camunda inside, but many Spring Boot Camunda processes that are connected with message flows, for example, and you want to get an overview of this, you have a single, every microservice has a single cockpit, so you would not get the overview over there. But then with Optimize, you can ingest all the data from all these engines and create reports on this.
Yep, that's very true. So,
and maybe the event ingestion feature from the latest optimized version will help you a little bit more to even catch more events than are not automated in the currently.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So just to describe the problem here and the two different architectures that are possible. In one, you can have multiple Spring Boot instances of the engine. If they're connected to the same database, you then get an overview of everything. But we're talking here about a scenario where each one is actually completely independent of another. And that's probably why the question exists, because if they want to see what's going on across lots of different databases and lots of different structures, the way Optimize works is it can, you point it in the direction of all the engines and it just ingests all the data. Now, Optimize is an enterprise feature, so if you want a slightly cheaper option, I would suggest that you could perhaps re-implement that and have kind of something close by trying to export the data to another database, like export it to Elasticsearch independently, and then you can use Kibana to visualize it. It wouldn't give you the same sort of feature set as the as Optimize does, but you could probably find a way to report across all of your, even with raw data, a report across all your flows, even if you don't get to see the flow, so to speak, as you would in Optimize. But yeah, Optimize is the fast and expensive answer, and building your own exporter to Elasticsearch is the cheaper but more time answer. So hopefully that'll do that. Cool. Neil, I'll throw it back to you. Is there any question there that strikes your fancy? We got maybe two more questions, so one each.
Why? Yeah, the why question I can't answer, but maybe you can go down to have a look. You had it before. Why the REST API? Why the get task API does not return the business key in the response? Yeah, it basically does not. So it's a good question. Why not? I did not wrote it myself, so maybe we can find out and ask the developers what they were thinking. Not to include it. I think it's good to have it. There are multiple options. Of course, you can build it on your own. But also we got a feature request for it recently, so maybe it's something we will consider in the future. But yeah, the why is hard to answer. I don't know if you have more insights here, Ingo or Niall, but I don't. Yeah, no. Well,
maybe because it's not there in the database. I think the business key is stored in the execution, and I don't know if the business key is populated to the task table. So it could be that there is a need for another join in the database that they would like to avoid in the moment. But it's a good thing to start with a pull request and get famous in the Camunda space and become a community member. And then if Microsoft does the next round by putting all the GitHub code into some very long-term storage, then you will be saved forever in some bunker down in Spitzbergen.
That's a very odd answer, Ingo, and absolutely correct. Yeah, we are always really happy with pull requests, and in fact, we have a Hacktoberfest thing coming up, which I'll talk more about later, to entice people to do that more. Cool, thanks, Nele. That's a good question. It's a decent feature request. Go to Camunda's open Jira at jira.camunda.com, and you can actually find this and vote it up and tell people to go make it, and we probably will. So go forth and create these feature requests. Ingo, one last question for you. What do you want to take?
I think there was one about testing in JUnit 4 or 5.
There is indeed. There it is.
And I think there are officially no plans in the moment, but I worked on this during our latest hack days. So I tried it out to create a JUnit 5 extensions that will start up the Camunda engine as the JUnit 4 rule does. It was quite easy. It gets the same features, and I provided a pull request, but Torben answered that they have no time to have a look into this to get this done for the 7.14 release, maybe later, and he proposed that I should start with a community extension to get this done independent from the core product. And Jan Galinski also agreed to this. He says it's much easier if you do this independently from the heavy Camunda ship to get your features done there.
Good to know. Thanks, Ingo. And do you have that on GitHub already?
Yes, I have a GitHub example in my repository.
Cool.
Where I tried out our common Twitter training example with the help of JUnit 5.
Awesome.
And
cool.
even process test coverage was generated then.
Cool. I'm going to take that. Okay. Okay, I will take the very last question. So which one shall that be? Do a lot of DMN questions there, but I will. Yeah, let's just go with the easy one, the top one here. The RPA well, compare, oh man, it's a big question. Okay, I'll answer this very complicated question very quickly. How does Camunda compare against RPA tools like UiPath? We do different things. We're comparable in the sense that we both, RPA is robotic process automation. It's entirely designed around the idea of having a front end that has no API, or a system with no API, and be able to write some kind of process or this bot that basically goes through the page and clicks buttons, adds stuff to fields, that sort of thing. The way Camunda and we came across RPA is because we found our customers were orchestrating RPA bots in order to contact legacy systems and also connect legacy systems with their newer API systems. So it meant that you would have a Camunda process, some of which was communicating with an old legacy system through a UiPath bot or an open RPA bot. And then the other task might be displaying something to a user in a brand new fancy UI, or communicating to a state-of-the-art system. So comparing them is kind of a strange way to say it, but yeah, that's kind of the way that goes. There's I would expect bigger conversations to come out of that in the future, so keep an eye out. I shall take that. Okay, so thanks very much, guys. There is some more stuff to talk about before we finish up. They are the events that are upcoming, and of course this is the time of year where we start talking about CamundaCon Live, the 2-day conference that is for the second time now going to be free and available to people who just have a decent internet connection. We have conversations from developers at Camunda, we have conversations from community people, we have conversations from people who use Camunda in a very big way, like big use cases and very interesting architectures. And also one of the reasons, of course, that Luca is here is because this is the first year as well where we're going to be doing an unconference on the day before CamundaCon. Luca, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so the day before CamundaCon, it will be the first time that we host our Camunda Community Unconference. And this is an open style conference where everyone can join and you can bring your own topics. I will post the link into the chat so you can find out more about it and you can register for it. And yeah, we hope to see you there.
I am very much looking forward to the unconference. I've been to unconferences before and they're really, really fun. For people like me who like to talk forever, they are designed specifically for somebody who just likes talking about topics. It'll be a really fun thing. Thanks for posting the link there, Luca. I'll also ask Luca to once again discuss this wonderful thing. Before you do, I just want to say that there is a whole bunch of stuff we discussed here, like for instance about Ingo talking about his Hack Day project with the JUnit 5, about Nele just finding this project. A lot of that is either found by you randomly hearing it from us here, or of course from the community newsletter. Luca, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we have our developer community newsletter, and it contains information about product updates, also upcoming events, also community contributions. So it's really for our technical community. Yeah, and I will also post the link into the chat so you can sign up for it. So it's not a promotional content, but just like technical content specifically for you.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Luca. So we have come to the end of another question corner. I would, of course, like to thank very, very much our special guest, Ingo, for coming along and answering questions you did. Thank you very much. We couldn't have answered some of those questions without you, so you were a great help for us. Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
And I hope to see you again.
Yeah, I liked it.
Glad to hear it. Also, of course, thank you very much to Nele, who joins me as always, and taking valuable time away from writing a master's in order to answer your questions. So thank you very much, Nele.
Yeah, thanks, Niall, for hosting it again. So
No problem. And of course, Luca, who actually does all the actual work around organizing it and promoting it, and the reason I'm sure that everyone here found out about it and came along. Hope to see you next time. You can go to the Camunda forum to see the events calendar to know when the next one's happening, as well as other events, usually with the last Thursday of every month. Thanks again for coming along, and thanks for your questions. It wouldn't happen without them. See you later. Goodbye.